everybody. Welcome back to the I Play 2 podcast. I'm your host, Rob Adler. This week, former hockey player and current Kalamazoo Wings assistant coach Billy McCreary joins the show. In 2002-2003, as a junior player with the Texas Tornado of the North American Hockey League, Billy led the Tornado in scoring with 60 points. In college, he had a combined 27 points in 2+ seasons at Providence, before transferring to Division III Curry College, where he led the team in assists and points as a senior. After turning pro, he was a member of 2 league champions, the Huntsville Havoc in the Southern Professional Hockey League and the New Jersey Outlaws in the Federal Hockey League. His cousin, Bill McCreary, was an NHL referee for over 3 decades and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2014. Billy's grandfather, Bill McCreary Sr., played in 3 straight Stanley Cup finals with the St. Louis Blues from 1968 to 1970, and Billy's great-uncle Keith McCreary was a 3-time 20-goal scorer in the NHL and was the first captain in Flames franchise history. Billy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Since we're in the off-season right now, what does an off-season entail for an assistant coach?
It's just a lot of recruiting, phone calls, a lot of video work, breaking down individual film and trying to recruit kids. So talking to players from all over the world, agents, coaches, things like that, doing our fact checking and just trying to build the team for the season that's upon us.
With being in Kalamazoo, what's the selling point that you make, not just so much for the team, but for the city to get players to come?
Well, I mean, it's just a tremendous hockey city. Kalamazoo Wings have had hockey here for 51, going on our 52nd season. So it's been around for more than my entire lifetime. So when you're looking for good ownership and stability and passionate fan base, Kalamazoo is certainly a market that you can rely on year after year to be there and to be putting a good team on the ice and fans in the stands.
I remember when I was in high school and college being here in Dallas at the time, the K-Wings were an affiliate of the Stars in the old IHL.
I think Craig Ludwig was tied into that team, and I played with his boys, team that you mentioned, the Texas Tornado. I played with 2 of his sons on that team and then at Providence College as well. So a little tie there.
Speaking of playing with the Tornado, what was it like playing junior hockey in the Dallas metro area?
It was fantastic. I had options to go to the USHL, the BCHL, and Salmon Arm, and Cedar Rapids in the USHL had drafted me. And going to Shattuck St. Mary's, most of our players went to either Cedar Rapids in the USHL or Salmon Arm in the BCHL that was owned by Andy Murray. And I had opportunities to go there, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I had a crop of kids that I kind of grew up playing with that ended up playing in Texas for the Tornado. So that was a place that I wanted to take my career, and was really eye-opening being down there right at the start of hockey essentially being introduced into the state. So there was a lot of excitement, a lot of questions about what hockey was, but people certainly excited about the Stars, and everybody thought we were the farm team for the Dallas Stars, being junior hockey players in the North American Hockey League. So we didn't argue with anybody, and we kind of acted like it too. But Mike Modano and Craig Ludwig were owners of ours at one point. So we often got to go to the Stars game and sit in the players' suites and kind of live a little bit of a dream life there for a junior hockey player. So I really, really enjoyed my days in Dallas, Texas. It's a place that I hold near and dear to my heart, and a lot of really good people down there that stopped playing hockey are still there coaching and raising their families there today.
You mentioned Mike Modano. Did he ever come by and maybe talk to the team as a franchise owner and maybe give a little bit of what he's learned throughout playing the game?
My second year there, they brought us to a preseason game and they introduced our whole team and they put us up in Modano's suite to watch the game. And he had actually popped up and was able to kind of talk to us after. And he popped in and out of the rink in North Richland Hills where we played a couple times, but pretty neat to see him, just his presence in an arena, in a locker room, the passion that he spoke about with the game. And he obviously played with the same passion. So it was kind of a dream come true to be able to see a player of his caliber right in front of your face in human form be so real and tangible.
You look at him now, and it still looks like he could get on the ice and take a few shifts.
Oh, he's a player. That guy could play till he's 80, I'm sure. And he'd skate circles around all of us.
You mentioned Shattuck St. Mary's. Could you kind of talk about the history there? Because guys like Jonathan Toews, Sidney Crosby all went through there at one point or another.
I'm a little bit older than those guys, so I was there pre them. But when I got there, I believe it was in 1999, and I played there until 2001. And it was just a tremendous place, and it was just being built. But I was recruited by JP Parisi, who wanted me to come and play with his son, Zach. And he always told me that Zach needed somebody that could play with him, but somebody that could protect him too. So I really took honor in that role and really enjoyed that and was able to learn from some tremendous minds. Tom Ward was my coach my last year there, and the amount of NHL players that he's produced is amazing coming out of one program. So very fortunate to be around such great hockey people and just good people in general that at such a young age for me, I was able to be influenced by great people. And I know you had Jordy Parisi on your show before. He was a really, really close friend of mine the 2 years that I was there, and obviously a line mate of his brother Zach. So I owe a lot to JP and Donna Parisi and their family for what they did for me, and they've done the same thing for countless other people too. So really enjoyed my time there, very fortunate, and kind of set me off on the path that I went on.
You mentioned that you were a little bit of a protector for Zach. Can you talk about having to embrace a role as a protector? Because a lot of young players may want to have the puck, want to score. So it takes a little bit of a different mindset to be in that protector role.
It was a role that I was kind of figuring out. I was a good player, or at least I thought I was. I certainly wasn't on the level of Zach, but when I was recruited there and they said, we want you to play with this kid, Zach, and protect him and give him some more room out there, I was kind of like, well, I want to play too. I want somebody to look after me. But I quickly found out how special he was and how gifted he was and how great of a person he was. And it just became natural for me to want to protect him and want to look out for him and get him the puck when I could and keep up with his abilities. And we had another line mate, Tyler Hirsch, who was just a tremendous player. And Tyler and Zach had grown up together and had a pretty special bond on and off the ice. So they really invited me into that bond, and it was easy to really look out for those guys. And with how gifted they were, I just brought a blue collar mentality to that line and really figured out how to play that Brad Marchand, Darcy Tucker type of role. And it was one that I thoroughly embraced and never shied away from moving forward after that. But I remember Tom Ward told me one day that that guy's all over Zach. You got to go take care of him. And thinking, okay, I don't know what that means. And so I'm sitting in the intermission thinking about how to take care of this kid. And I finally end up on the ice against him and I chase him around for 50 seconds and nothing happens. And then the whistle blows and I finally get a chance to drop my mitts and give the guy a go. And we get into a pretty quick fight. We'd both been out there for about 50 seconds and I came back to the box and I was just huffing and puffing and could barely breathe. Then Wardo walked down and he said, hey, good job, but next time fight him at the start of your shift, not the end of your shift. So that was kind of the first lesson. And I kind of looked at Wardo and was like, well, you could have gave me some tips before that. So for me, it was kind of figuring out how to do it as the games rolled along. But a tremendous honor and tremendous people to play with for sure.
Now that you're a coach and you've played a bunch of different roles, you've played the scoring role, you've played the protector role. How do you get your players to buy into the role that they need to play for the team?
The one thing at this level in East Coast League is everybody wants to move up. The way I look at it, if you're going to move up from the East Coast League, the American League, I would want the coach in the American League to be able to utilize me in any position. If you're a defenseman, a guy that can clear out the net front, win battles along the walls, things like that. So for forwards, I try to tell them, don't pigeonhole yourself into one role. Don't just want to be a goal scorer or just a playmaker, because when you get that chance to move up the ladder, you want more opportunity. So you don't want a coach to say, well, he doesn't play a physical game, so he can't be a third or fourth line defensive checker. What if a coach needs you in that role? Would you want an opportunity to be on the ice in the last minute of a 3-2 game when you're up by a goal? Tremendous situation, tremendous opportunity to be on the ice as a young player trying to climb the ladder. So, really just being open to rounding out your game and building out your skill sets, not to just be a one dimensional player, but to have multiple dimensions to your game. So when you do climb the ladder, you can play multiple elements within the game and provide yourself more opportunity to see the ice and earn trust with the staff.
An interesting point you mentioned about the call up, because a lot of times that you'll see it from the AHL to the NHL that the scorer in the AHL will be called up and will play a third or fourth line role. So it's like, well, the guy's not being productive. It's like, well, he's in a totally different role that he might be a little unfamiliar with. When you have somebody that comes up from the SPHL or the FPHL, how do you ease a player into a role that they're comfortable with?
You certainly don't want to put a player in a situation to fail. So you want to give them opportunities to succeed. And oftentimes with players that are climbing the ladder, you want to understand what their strengths are, where they're confident within their game, and then you want to try to implement them, I would say, in small doses at first within those moments to give them confidence and to watch their game start to grow and let the game provide the player some comfortability as they grow into the game or settle into the game, if you will. So it's really about picking and choosing the moments to utilize that player and to allow that player to build confidence. And then within that, players, they have to be willing to fail too. So if you go out and you're in a situation and you have a puck on your stick, and in the SPHL, you're a goal scorer and you have a breakaway, it doesn't go in for you. You need to be able to work through that and be confident in your abilities and not get stuck in what didn't happen, but be able to turn the page and look forward to your next opportunity. So a little bit is definitely on the coach and finding the right situations, and then a little bit is on the player too, and being mentally and physically prepared for those moments.
Now, obviously, there's a lot more video at all levels, so coaches can look at and figure out where a player fits. But when it comes to the actual game and coaching a player, how long does it take to find a fit, especially when it's a player coming in from a different team or in the off season if there's a lot of player turnover?
I think it just depends on the situation. There's been times where players come into our system and I've coached the player before or have some familiarity in one way or another, and you can just hit the ground running, so to speak, when that happens. But if it's a brand new player and a brand new person, you certainly have to make a connection with the person before you can really start coaching the player. And that's just my philosophy. So, really getting to understand the person that's coming into your team, into your program, allowing those conversations to happen so you do understand who you're working with, you do know who you're working with, at least on a foundational level. And then you allow that relationship to grow on and off the ice. So for me, it's really getting to know the person first. So the quicker you buy into doing that, which obviously takes two people to have a conversation. So the player has to be open to having those conversations too. But the quicker you can create that relationship and that trust, the quicker you can get to the development piece.
I totally agree on the connection coming from somebody who's done interviews for a lot of years. When you're interviewing somebody, usually before the interview, that you can connect with. In this situation, your dad played for the Maple Leafs, and they happen to be my favorite team. And what a better connection than that?
I'm a big Leafs fan. I get heckled for it all the time, but you said it. We've been through the ringer here for many, many years, so hopefully they can turn it around here soon.
Growing up, who was your favorite Leaf?
I became a Leaf fan because my dad was a Maple Leaf, but never got to watch him play as a Maple Leaf. And there's probably two for me that stick out: Doug Gilmore and then Darcy Tucker. And Doug Gilmore was just right there with Steve Eiserman, like just a captain's captain and really humble guy and really good hockey player. And I really emulated the way he played the game, but I really just loved Darcy Tucker and how he played and how physical he was. And at 5'9", 5'10", he'd fight anybody, he'd hit anyone, he could score goals, he could make plays. Like I just thought he was so electric as a player that he quickly grabbed my attention. And those two would probably be my two all-time Leaf greats for sure.
Doug Gilmore was the first Leaf jersey I ever owned.
That's a great jersey, the old 93. Nothing better.
Transitioning here to your playing career from becoming a junior player to a college player, what was the recruiting process like for you?
Going back to my days playing with Zach, there was so much attention around him that's when I really started to understand the recruiting process and was very fortunate for that because I just took time. I watched Zach get heavily recruited by Minnesota and North Dakota and BU and Michigan and every big school in the country. And he just sat back and took his time and really waited till the decision was made, and he didn't rush into it. And I feel like there's a lot of people nowadays that just rush into that decision and are making those commitments at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. So for me, I really just wanted to sit back and gather all the information and go to a place where I really felt in my heart that that was home. So I was recruited by a number of schools: St. Cloud, Miami of Ohio, Michigan State, Lake Superior State, Maine, Quinnipiac, and obviously Providence. So I had lined up some visits to go to see Maine, Providence, Quinnipiac, all on the East Coast. And I was going to do it in kind of a one-stop tour. And I saw Quinnipiac, and I had an amazing visit there with Rand Pecknold and Ben Sire, some names that are still around in the game today. So met some really great people and had a tremendous experience there. But ultimately the next day I was picked up by Rick Bennett and Ben Berard, and they drove me to Providence College where I met Coach Paul Pooley. And there was a lot of Shattuck people, boys and girls, that had gone to Providence. Like half our prep team from Shattuck went to play for Providence College. So I had a lot of familiarity and friends that were at the school. So as soon as I got on campus, it kind of just felt like home. It had that Shattuck feel to it. There's a lot of Shattuck people there that I was able to see and spend some time with. So I ultimately decided to commit right then and there to Providence, and I canceled my visit to Maine. I canceled it to Nebraska, Omaha, and some unhappy coaches and things like that. But I had really found the place that I wanted to be. So I took some time and talked to some coaches and really just checked all the boxes that I needed to check to find that college home. And my freshman, sophomore year there were just tremendous. And unfortunately, the coaching staff that recruited me was disbanded. Paul Pooley went to join Jeff Jackson at Notre Dame and become his associate head coach, which opened up a head coaching vacancy for us. And I was hoping that Rick Bennett would get it because I just really loved playing for that guy, and he's just a true competitor and somebody I would have loved to play for. He ultimately didn't get the job, and Tim Army got the job and kind of came in and had a different theory, different philosophy. So didn't really work out there long term for me. But the people that recruited me there and Providence College as a home was tremendous to me the first 2 years.
What did you learn as a player with the coaching change that helped you now as a coach? Because a lot of times you might have a bad season or something like that. The head coach might get removed. And what did you learn from that that helped you in your pro career, not just as a coach now, but as a player when you played?
There's a few things that I learned from that experience, but one was not to put your destiny in somebody else's hands. I needed to do a better job of controlling my own destiny and forcing somebody's hand to play me and to get to know me. And that's really big on the relationship piece because I think when the coaching change happened, I had such a special relationship with the coaches that were there previously. And when the new coach came in, there was really no relationship that was built. It was just, this is what I'm going to do. Here's what I need you to do. And as a kid trying to just please my coach, I was doing everything I could to please him, but it wasn't what he was looking for. So I didn't really know how to connect with him and understand what he was looking for. So I couldn't really deliver that. So for me, it would be putting myself in a situation to control my own destiny, which the NCAA has allowed for players to have a little bit more freedom now. So I think coaches are forced to really get to know their players and get to understand them, especially if they want to keep them around. And then for me, it would be just be who I am as a person and don't try to be somebody else that somebody wants you to be. Because I felt like I was trying to do that too much and I lost who I was. And if I just stay true to who I was and the player that I am, whether it works out there or not, I get to walk out of the program with my head held high.
Seeing how the transfer portal has really changed things in the NCAA at all levels, are you a little envious that those players have the chance to transfer and not sit out while you didn't have that opportunity while you played?
I wouldn't say envious. When I was going through it, I was just frustrated because when I left Providence, Maine wanted me to go there and they had a really good team. Lake Superior State wanted me to go and they had a good team. But the human element for me kicked in, and I ultimately thought and knew that I had so much passion for the game and playing the game that if I went to University of Maine or Lake Superior into those markets and for a full year I couldn't play hockey, I wasn't the greatest student. I didn't really enjoy school. I was there to play hockey essentially. So there was some fear there for me of if you took away the game for a year, what would happen to my life and how I would be emotionally, mentally, physically, all that stuff. So I ultimately didn't choose to go down that road because I didn't want to take that year off and take the year away from the game and risk maybe losing the love of the game or losing my rhythm or whatever it may be. So definitely wish I had the opportunity to just step into another D1 club and continue playing at that level because when I transferred to D3, it was hard on me emotionally and mentally. I remember the first game we were playing at Walter Brown Arena before the new BU rink, and it wasn't packed anymore. There was like 10 people in the stands, and I remember scoring 4 goals in the game and thinking, this isn't any fun. Like, there's no fans here. If I did this 3 weeks ago against BU, I'm having a blast. But I was drowning in my sorrows a little bit and trying to figure out the change. So for me, getting into Walter Brown was probably a little bit of a shock because there was nobody there, but I was still playing hockey. So I owe a lot to the Curry staff and Rob Davies and the players that were there because they really welcomed me in and helped me work through the emotions that I was going through leaving Providence College and finding a new home at the D3 level.
Now, as a coach, when you have a player come down from the AHL to the ECHL, how do you communicate the message that the demotion isn't a bad thing, that here's what you can learn from it to get back to where you want to be?
That's such a great point because that's what changed it for me was working on the things at the D3 level that I couldn't work on at the D1 level. And there's players in the American League that if they come down here, maybe the coach just wanted them to be a certain player at that level, whether it be a third line checker or a fourth line center with PK time or something like that. Well, now if you're coming down to the East Coast League, well, we can put you net front on the power play. So now you have a little bit of an offensive role too that you wouldn't have in the American League. Certainly lean on those people, depending on their experience and how long they've been around, to mentor the younger guys and be a leader to these young kids coming out of D1 that are trying to learn how to be pros. So helping utilize those guys as resources to empower them and give them more duties and roles to empower them to have that excitement to give back to other people and really help the team rather than just saying, well, that's who you were up there. So you're coming down here and you're going to do the same thing here. See you on the ice. Giving those guys an opportunity to grow their game.
How hard was it for you to make the transition from college hockey player to pro hockey player?
I don't think it was tough for me. I really enjoyed junior hockey, and I thought junior and pro were more similar than college and pro. I don't think I had an issue with it at all. I just jumped right in and didn't skip a beat. You're still playing 60 odd games, 2, 3 games a weekend, all that kind of stuff. So the schedule was very similar. The travel was similar. And in college, you're playing like 26 games a year and it's 2 games on a weekend and it's spaced out and there's a lot more rest and things like that. So I was certainly mentally and physically ready for that pro grind. And I really enjoyed the transition for sure. I think the tough part for me was I transitioned from a forward all the way through college to a defenseman when I turned pro. So that was a big change for me, really having to adapt my game, everything from my skating skills and learning how to pivot and skate backwards, things like that, gap control. So that was probably the biggest adjustment for me, but ultimately extremely happy that I switched positions and became a D once I turned pro.
I want to follow up on that in a moment, but what was Curry College like to attend? Because other than knowing that Alexander Graham Bell was the first chancellor there, I don't know a whole lot about Curry.
It's a really neat school. It's about 15 minutes outside of Boston in Milton, Massachusetts. It was about 35, 40 minutes from Providence College. And I had a lot of friends. There was a few people that left Providence actually and went to Curry prior to me. So that's how I knew of the school. And then there was some players that I played against in the North American Hockey League that went to school there and played hockey there. So I was able to get in touch with those people, and I was quickly able to find myself in a meeting with the coach and just transitioning into that team. So really small school, very nice campus, and great academic school, and great nursing program, good business program. Like I said, just outside of Boston. So if you want to really just get into the city, it's a quick train ride away, which is a lot of fun as a college student athlete. And they had a good hockey club. So when I got there, it was an expectation that we win our conference, an expectation that we make the national tournament. We fell one win short of that goal my senior year, so that was a bummer and pretty unfortunate, but really enjoyed my time there. I got to play with my best friend, Matt Pinchevsky, who's a coach at University of Southern Maine now. We went to Shattuck together, so I just owe a lot to that group of players and the coaching staff that allowed me to kind of refine my footing. And they did a lot to help me earn my first pro contract and sign that in Huntsville, Alabama with the help of Rob Davies. And I'm very fortunate to find a great little school there and was able to call that home for a year and a half.
Huntsville's kind of an odd spot for hockey, but they had Alabama Huntsville for a while, produced a couple NHL guys. What was it like to play hockey in Huntsville?
It was a dream, to be honest with you. When I left Boston and drove down there, I had no idea what I was getting into. I barely knew where Alabama was on a map, being a Canadian hockey player. So it was a culture shock at first. It's 85 degrees down there when you're walking into a rink during playoff time. So different feel for sure, but I got to tell you, it was one of the best organizations I've ever been a part of. And it was because of the people. Great ownership. We always had really good coaches when I was down there and really good players, players that were driven, had passion, and wanted to win. And we were able to really put together a fun run in building that organization to where they are now. And I'd say that's probably the premier destination in the Southern Pro Hockey League now. But when I got there, they were trying to find their way. So to be somebody who came in and spent my career in one place for 6 years doesn't really happen in the minors very much. So I owe a lot to Keith and Becky Jeffries and the Huntsville community and the Havoc in general for taking me under their wing and allowing me to figure out how to be a pro, and ultimately brought a championship to the city there. So that was a dream come true and a lot of fun. But you're playing in front of 7,000 people every night. The place is just packed. Your pregame show rivals what they do in Nashville. Like everything is just next level, top notch there. So it's really fun to play there. They're still doing great things here today.
You won a title there. What was the ride like throughout the playoffs on the way to winning it?
Just like any year is a roller coaster. I think we were the fourth place team, maybe playing the first place team in the finals. So we were definitely the underdogs. But I remember the series kind of being all ours. So we found our stride as a team come playoff time. So it wasn't a season we were just on top all year and dominated all year. And we had to go through the trials and tribulations of the season and work our way into playoffs and earn our way into a spot. And once we got into a playoff spot, we just continued to believe in each other, sacrifice for each other. We got really good goaltending from our goalie, Dan McQuinney, who I think was playoff MVP that year. So we really just built off of each other's energy and played for each other. And it was a really special group that obviously still talk to today and share those memories. And a lot of us actually left Huntsville and a couple years later went to the Federal Hockey League and joined the New Jersey Outlaws and won a championship there last year. And we're all able to retire together. And it was a fun little story for us.
You mentioned New Jersey and winning a title there. What's it like to go out on top and end a career as a champion?
I think it was different. You never really envision when you stop playing. And we had dropped down levels to the Federal Hockey League from the SPHL, but they were tossing around a lot of money, and they had a reality show that they were trying to film. So we were followed by cameras all year, and we were paid as hockey players. We were paid as actors that year for the TV show. So we all kind of made some really good money that last year. And for us, it was just about finding a place that we could continue to be together and enjoy each other and enjoy our competition, our competitive spirit, enjoy the friendships that we had built over the years, the relationships, and just go out together. And we were able to win it. And we were in Danbury for the championship game. And we won it in Danbury, which I thought was great because it was the biggest building in the league at that point. Our building in New Jersey was just kind of a small rec rink that they had tried to put together as a professional hockey rink. So they did their best, but it wasn't the atmosphere that we were used to in the Southern Pro League or the East Coast League or anything like that. So winning it in Danbury in front of 1,200 people on the road kind of made it a little bit more sweet and more familiar for us. But it was just a great group of guys to go out on top with. And then I met Herm Sorcher, who was running the Danbury team then. So that game and that meeting led to me operating and having an ownership share in the Hat Tricks today. So pretty neat road.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the Edmonton Oilers had a documentary called Boys on the Bus, where cameras followed them in the mid-'80s. So in a similar sense, what's like having cameras being at every practice? In some cases, I'm guessing probably being at maybe a team dinner and just being everywhere, having to be careful what you're saying and doing.
You hit the nail on the head. You just got to be careful of what you're doing all the time, what you're saying. There's so much passion that goes into the game. So there's a lot to catch on camera if you're sitting there filming all day. Like we'd win a hockey game, it'd be great on the ice, and then the camera crew would go to the bar after the game and just change the vibe a little bit. You get the camera crew or the producer that would go over to somebody and say, hey, I'll give you $15 if you do X, Y, or Z. Trying to get a little feed for the camera, I guess. But you just have to be careful of what you want to put into the world and what you don't want to put into the world, right? So it was certainly a learning experience for me. And I have no problem sitting down having these conversations and having my face on camera. But I didn't want to be somebody who a producer or somebody like that could say, hey, go do this for me and let's get that on camera. If it was natural for me, it was natural. But if it wasn't natural, I wasn't doing it.
You mentioned going to Danbury and you won a league title there and you're in the Danbury Ring of Honor. What was the whole experience of being in Danbury? And you talked about the hockey environment as a player playing against them, but what was it like to be a part of the franchise and be in that environment?
It's such a passionate fan base there. And that was really my first go around at being a coach in the minors. And when you're coaching the minors, you have to do it all yourself pretty much. So you don't have a lot of support. So for me, I was kind of rolling the dice and betting on myself and trying to build the best team that I could. And we had a really good front office. They had a lot of experience in the league. So they gave me a tremendous amount of help and really just building the foundation, setting that foundation the first year as a new organization. And it took us some time to get the right players in place. And the first year, I think, got shut down by COVID. So we dealt with the COVID frustrations and challenges our first year or two, but we were able to work through that as an organization. And when we came back from COVID, we were ultimately able to win a championship there. So it was definitely just a big learning experience. And I owe a lot to the fans there, and obviously the front office and the ownership, and certainly the players. And it's really remarkable for me to be able to sit back and watch the journey of some of these players. Like Michael Marchessault was our playoff MVP that year. He was cut from Binghamton at the beginning of the year, and he almost retired, almost quit hockey, and I was able to talk him into coming back and playing for me in Danbury, and watching his development throughout the course of the year to see him playing his best hockey in playoffs. He scored the game winner in overtime, and he's been in the East Coast League ever since. So to see a story like that is truly humbling for me as a coach, because that's why I got into it, was really to help players achieve the levels that they want to achieve and beyond. Daniel Amesbury was a player for us, and he got kicked out of the league, and the league always said, this guy can't be a hockey player, and They had all this focus and a target on his back. And as soon as they got a chance to kick him out of the league, they found a way to do it. And I fought for that guy to be a part of our team and remain a part of our team. But the league obviously had made their decision. So to watch him again be in the East Coast Hockey League post his Federal Hockey League career, it's really remarkable to see his story and his journey and how hard he's worked and how hard he's literally fought to get where he is today. So some really neat stories that we were able to start in Danbury, and they're still going on here today.
When you're a coach and you see an overtime game winner, what was your reaction?
I remember just hugging my coaching staff. I couldn't think of anything else. I didn't know what to do. I just hugged everybody. And I think there's definitely some tears there because we had all worked so hard together and had gone through the ups and downs. So when we pulled it off, it was kind of unbelievable. We were actually down 0-2 going into the final three games. So we had to go back to Danbury and win three in a row to make it happen. And as a coach, you're trying to will your players to believe and all that stuff, even though you might not fully believe 110% yourself. So you're trying to will yourself to get the players to really find that belief if they don't have it and let that belief overtake them. We were able to do that, and our fans certainly helped us tremendously going back home. But again, I'll never forget when that puck slid across the goal line. It was disbelief, to be honest with you. I couldn't believe we came all the way back and clawed and scratched and became victorious in the biggest moment. And I should have believed in them probably a little bit more than I did because they'd proved me right or wrong all year. So I probably should have gave them a little bit more credit, but it was a really special moment for sure.
Is there any difference winning a league championship from when you were a player to when you're a coach?
Maybe just a little bit personally for me, nothing that I would really ever talk about other than if asked that question. But when I was a player and I won those championships, I was always an assistant captain. So I was always a part of the leadership group, but I was never the leader. You know what I mean? So I was always very fortunate to be around good people and being a supporting cast to those people. What I found in the head coaching GM role when you win it is you are the leader. Everything falls underneath you. So that was maybe a little bit of an aha moment for me personally, where it was like, okay, I can be the leader, the guy to take us to the next level and build the support around me like I had supported so many people prior to that situation. My entire career had always been an assistant captain and the supporting staff, but never the captain, the premier leader, the face of the team or the organization. So definitely a learning moment for me in that moment.
How did you end up heading to Kalamazoo from Danbury?
I had gotten to a point in Danbury where I just didn't feel like there was many more challenges that I would have to go through. And I wanted to continue to grow as a leader and a coach. So I wanted to put myself in situations where maybe I wasn't as comfortable. So I started looking at other jobs as they pop up. Kalamazoo came up and I sent in my resume. And it just kind of happened that the day I sent my resume into the head coach, he was down in Huntsville, Alabama with a former teammate of mine, Glenn DeTulio, who was running the Huntsville Havoc. And Glenn and Joel Martin, our head coach here in Kalamazoo, were teammates and really good friends. And Marty had let him know that he had just lost his two assistant coaches. And he's like, I'm really up against it here trying to find my coaching staff for the upcoming season. Would you recommend anybody? And Glenn graciously recommended me. And when Marty heard my name, he said, well, that resume just came into my phone about 10 minutes ago. So really good timing on my part. And Glenn helped put my name out there for sure and onto Marty's desk. And I think just the timing of the two led to a really nice conversation with Joel Martin that transpired to where we are today. And really grateful for, again, just the people, because Glenn DeTulio is just a tremendous person, tremendous leader. And getting to learn under Marty here in Kalamazoo, again, just a tremendous person, a tremendous leader, and two people that I emulate in certain ways. So grateful for the game and the people that are within it.
A lot of coaches do this, especially when they go from one level to a higher level. But how do you make the transition from being a head coach to an assistant coach? Because the roles are, I would say, quite different.
They're extremely different. And to be honest, I'm still trying to find my way and learn because when you're a head coach, obviously the decision always falls on your shoulders. So you have to be the one to take all that pressure and make that final say. And as an assistant, you can just throw out a million different ideas and comments or what have you. And if one sticks, you're going to grab onto it and say, hey, let's do that. But you could say 10 different things and 9 of them are just going to disappear into thin air. Whereas a head coach, if you say 10 different things, everybody's holding on to every word that you said. And Marty is such a humble guy, and there's really little to no ego there for him. So to be able to learn from him and ask him questions and say, what do you think about this? Think this would work? You're always going to get honest answer, whether it's a yes or a no. You're going to get detail to it. You're going to get reasoning behind it. And it's just always an opportunity for me to grow. So similar to as a player, when you make a mistake, you learn from it. So really in a tremendous position here with great people that are always willing to work on the development, not only as players, but as coaches and staff members alike. So really fortunate for sure.
Speaking of learning and growing, what did you get to learn from your grandfather and your father growing up in a hockey family?
Oh, a lot. I think for my grandpa, what I really took from him was it doesn't matter how big you are, it's how much you care and how much you're willing to fight and what you're willing to fight for. And I think you mentioned it. He played in 3 Stanley Cup finals and lost all 3 of them. That never ruined his love for the game, it only built it. So he taught me a tremendous amount about just working through adversity and not letting failure define who I am as a person. And one of the most special things that he told me was after I won the championship in Huntsville, he had said that he had won a Memorial Cup champion, but was never able to win a championship at the pro level. And told me that I should be extremely proud of what I've earned, no matter the level. And for me, that just spoke volumes about who he was as a person and how he loved me for what I was able to achieve. I didn't have to reach the NHL to make him proud. I just needed to be me and be successful wherever I was. So he taught me a lot about just the resiliency of the game and continuing to show up for the fight that I wanted to fight for. And if I wasn't willing to fight for something, then you don't have to show up for it anymore. And that's kind of when I learned that I was probably no longer going to play the game anymore. I just didn't have the passion to continue to put my body on the line like I did in years prior. So I was really ready to retire, and I owe a lot to my grandfather for teaching me how to continue to fight for what I believe in and fight for what I want. And then my dad, I mean, the lessons are endless, but just accountability, being a good person when nobody's looking. Like it's easy to be a good person when everybody's watching and the spotlight's on you. But if you're going through something tough or you're going through those hard days, like, are you still that same person? Do you still have those same leadership habits? Or do you go the other way? For him, it wasn't so much about the game. It was who I was becoming and the type of person I was becoming, the type of man, the type of leader. So he was big on working through pain and not letting pain dictate you and things like that. So always pushing through injuries and all of that stuff. It was kind of part of their fabric back in the day. And I'll never forget, I broke my wrist one year and it was completely separated. And the doctor laid me on the table and he put my hand in Chinese finger traps. And then they laid a 10-pound weight on my elbow. So it was just pulling the bone apart. And the doctor said he was going to come in. He was just going to press on my bones and put them together again because it was a pretty bad break. And he said, I'm going to numb you up before we do this so you won't feel a thing. And my dad put his hand out and he said, he's not going to take any pain medication. And I remember looking at my dad, looking at the doctor and being like, what do you mean? Like, I need pain medication. It's hurting me now. So if you can give it to me now, I'll take it. And my dad just said, I didn't take it when I played. He doesn't need it. And he looked at me and he was like, this is a lesson that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. And he's like, it's going to hurt. Squeeze my fingers. You're going to get through the pain and you're going to be fine. The doctor's room filled up with all the doctors and the nurses, and they were trying to tell my dad, hey, you don't have to do this kind of thing. And the doc walked in and set my arm with no painkillers, and I screamed as loud as I could, and the pain was done in about 12 seconds. And I looked at my dad and I said, it's over. And I knew that hopefully that was the most pain that I was going to feel the rest of my life and that I could handle it. So tough lesson to learn for sure. And I don't know if it's one that I do with my son today, but it was always lessons like that about not letting pain define who you are and working through those moments and working through them with grace too.
What was the rehab process like for you?
It was my freshman year, so I think it was like 6 weeks. I was in a cast for maybe 4 weeks. And then I think my dad sawed off the cast in the garage a couple weeks early. So rehab process is probably quicker than expected, but a lot of wrist curls and things like that, just loosening it up and strengthening it again.
I broke my wrist coincidentally my freshman year of college. I remember one of the nurses calling my mom from campus, like, we have an emergency, your son broke his wrist. And my mom's like, that's not an emergency. And then she asked me, can you drive yourself or do I need to come get you?
No, I got it, Mom.
Did you have to do the whole ball thing with your wrist where you had to flex your wrist up? That was the absolute worst.
It started with that red rubber ball and you just squeeze it. It wasn't even any wrist motion to start. It was just squeezing it and getting the muscles to work again. And then it became a whole exercise of flexing your wrist up and down. And I remember you had to let the ball roll all the way to your fingertips with not letting it go over your fingertips. So it was just a whole bunch of exercises that are now coming back into my brain.
They're not fun to think about. I can agree on that.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to those days.
When you look ahead, what is your plan in hockey? Is it to stay as a coach? Is it to become once again a GM?
I've always tried to stay fluid in the game and try to tell the players be open to different paths and different roles and things like that. So certainly love being a head coach and a general manager, and there's a lot of joy in that for me. But I also want to work at the highest levels that I can. So if I want to make the NHL someday, I don't know if I'm going to be there as a GM or as a head coach. And I need to be okay with that. I am okay with that. And if I make it to the NHL as an assistant coach or a video coach or an assistant GM, I'm just open to following my heart and following the game like I always have, putting myself around good people that will allow me to be challenged and allow me to grow as a professional. So I don't think I have my head or my heart set on, well, I need to be a head coach again in 5 years. If I'm continuing to be around good people and I'm challenged and I have a role within a team, I'm okay with that for sure. So the dream would be a head coach or probably a general manager in the NHL would be my dream, but just reaching that level in any capacity would certainly be a dream come true as well.
And lastly, what is your advice for a player who's coming to the end of their career who wants to transition into becoming a coach about how to get there?
I would say just fall back on the relationships that you built within the game. I feel that that's been the biggest asset for me. It's not allowing like the wins and the losses or the championships to kind of dictate what I do or where I go. It's leaning on the people that I've gotten to know and the relationships that I've built over the years. So if you've gone through the game and you've created those relationships with coaches, trainers, athletic directors, assistant coaches, reconnect with those people and see what they're doing, see if you can become involved. Because oftentimes, what I've found is people that I've dealt with in my past, they're working on projects today in the game that I'd love to be a part of or I'd love to help. Now, there's only so much time and so many seasons and things like that. So you have to pick and choose your path. But I would say go back to the relationships that were built over your career and find where you can help the game. And for me, I've always just had the attitude that I'm going to serve the game. In whatever capacity I can serve the game, that's what I want to do. And I want to serve the people within it. And I want to continue to do that as long as I have that passion in my heart. So it's about finding that role that really inspires me so I can inspire other people.
Billy, thank you so much for joining the I Play 2 podcast today. I very much appreciate it. It was great to hear about your playing career, winning 2 titles, becoming a head coach, and now being an assistant in Kalamazoo. Best of luck next year and wherever your coaching and front office career takes you. Take care, man.
Thank you, Rob.